Good morning. Communication is an interesting process, the whole process of communication. There is what I say, right? There's what we say. There is the source of communication. There is the receiver, right? The person I'm speaking to or trying to get my message to. So it could be the receiver, they're the receivers. And there is the path, right? The channel by which that message is being spoken. So I mean, right here, right now, we have a perfect example of communication. I'm speaking a message, right? Hopefully you are trying to listen to that message, but there's a channel in which that's happening, and interference can happen, right? So for a number of reasons, what I say and what you hear may not line up, okay? So it could have to do with me. Maybe I mumble something. Maybe I pronounce a word in a way that you're not really familiar with, okay? We go to the grocery store, we get a grocery cart, we push it around. Some people in some parts of the world, they don't get a cart, they get a buggy, okay? So maybe I'm talking about the buggy that I got at the grocery store and you're confused. What does he mean, he got a buggy? Did he get sick? You know, did something sting him? So there's communication issues. So maybe it's the language that we use doesn't line up. Maybe there's noise, okay? Most of the kids have now gone, but some are still here. Some may return. That could happen. Maybe I'm in the middle of saying something and the kid that's on your lap or very close to you goes, "Rah!" Then you don't hear what was said, okay? Maybe there's something going on in your head and in your life. In Bible class this morning, we talked about blessings. And my mind returned to a time in college that I got the opportunity to do a devotional for a small group of people. I don't know how many people were there, 20 or 30 people. And I got to present a devotional thought about Bible. And afterwards, I got a note card from one of the girls from the college that was there. And the note card was just kind of gushing about this, that she had been going through some really hard times in her life. And that she was so appreciative that God worked through me to present a specific message that she needed to hear on that day. And in the note card, she proceeded to say, when you said this, blah, 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 that really touched my heart. Now, the incredible thing about this story is, in my mind, was the things that she said, that I said, that touched her heart, I never said. You know, so God works in mysterious ways, right? Here I am, reading through this card, feeling I'm glad that God used me. Then when I read what she says, I realize that God worked in a whole different way. She got the message she needed to get, and I don't know what happened in the communication, but the Holy Spirit worked it out, right? And so sometimes those things can work to our favor. I was laughing this week because I can't remember, Cassie had gone out and Robert was up sleeping, so I was hanging out with Blythe, and it was one of those, she's been kind of sick lately, but she is definitely a mama's girl, okay? So, I mean, we have our little father-daughter moments, and we were having one. So we had all these new blocks that were on our carpet. We were playing with the blocks, and so I was laying on my back, and so she was on my belly, and I would put the block on my belly, and she would take it, and she would put it in the box, and then she kind of looked tired. She reached down, and she put her head on my chest, and it was just one of those like daddy moments, you know. Here I am, and I just put my arms around her, and she just nestled her head into my chest, and she couldn't really seem to get comfortable. So it was all right. She'll squirm around a little bit. So she kind of moved off, and it was really cute. She actually got on the floor next to me and then put her head back down on me, and I was just like, my heart was melting, you know? It was just one of these things like, oh, she just wants to be with Daddy. At the end of the whole ordeal, about the 10 minutes, now I do think she was a little tired, and I was there as a pillow, but I realized by the amount of snot that was on my shirt that what she was trying to communicate was not, Dad, I love you so much, and I just want to snuggle. What she was trying to communicate was, I really need something to wipe my snotty nose on right now. And your sweatshirt is perfect for the job. So in communication, there's what we're trying to say, and then there's what is the other person hearing. And so I thought this was particularly interesting in the whole realm of sin. Because we're going to explore together some of these examples in Genesis, and then I want us to reflect on our own lives a little bit. For when we sin, when you sin, what is it that you're really trying to say when you sin? Or what is it that you are saying? And when you sin, what is it that the people around you are hearing? And what is it that God hears? So we'll look at some of these things. So let's go ahead. We can start in Genesis chapter 20. That's what our scripture reading was this morning. And it's kind of an interesting story. Abraham, it's tough. He lies about Sarah, or he asks Sarah to say, I'm just a sister. Now, technically speaking, that I guess you could say, well, that wasn't a lie, because they had the same father. It was different times. But the intent was to deceive, right? The intent was to make it look to this king, wherever they're going. And this is not the only, I believe it happened twice with Abraham, and then later on, Isaac does it with his wife. And he tells Rebekah, just say that you're my sister, okay? And so we get in this situation. Here he is. He explains when he's communicating with God, he says, I came to this land and I thought there's no fear of God in these people. And so in his mind, he believed that if he revealed that he was the husband of Sarah, that what they would do in response would be to say, well, she is so beautiful, and we want her, or the king wants her as a wife so badly, that the only thing that's in the way of that is that she has a husband. So the logical answer and response would be off the husband, right? Kill him, get him out of the way. Now this woman is free. And so now the king can have her as his wife. So Abraham, in desperation, in the attempt to save his own life, because that's really the fear, right? Is I don't want to die. He makes the decision. He encourages Sarah to say, no, he's just my brother, and not reveal the other side of the relationship. So I want to encourage some interaction here. Let's talk about this together. Put yourself in Abraham's shoes, in Abram's shoes, okay? You are him. You're in this situation. You've done this. It's not that you get to go back and say, let's try to do it a different way. You've asked Sarah to lie, okay? So what is it that you were trying to say? Now this can get cloudy, because we are already affected by what we're hearing, right? By how we are interpreting what he's done. But if you can imagine that you're him, what are you saying by making this decision? What is it that you are saying or trying to communicate by asking your wife, will you lie? I think part of it might be what I already said was, I don't want to die, right? Just kind of here's my response. Here's the situation. I don't want to die. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do, even if it's wrong, even if it's bad, to attempt to spare my life. Now, that also, if he understands what the truth of God's plan is and what the right way, the righteousness, the righteous way, then he would know that it wouldn't be to lie about the situation. So then, if he could contemplate all of those things, then it would be ultimately saying, you know what, God, your plan I don't think is the best plan in this situation, so I'm going to try to do things my way. I'm scared of what will happen if I do tell the truth, all right? So think of a lie that maybe you've told, or times that you've been tempted to lie. And it probably boils down to that. I am scared of what will happen if I tell the truth, right? I think that's what you're saying. But then, what is God hearing? What is God hearing when you lie? You don't trust me. You don't really believe in my plan. You feel like you need to do it your way, that your way is better. How about Eve? We talked about Eve last week. Eve, there's this is a well-known sin. Adam and Eve, they are told, do not eat from the fruit. All right, so simple, just disobedience. Here's the rule. You broke the rule. So what are they, when Eve sees the fruit, sees that it's good to eat, takes it and eats it, what is she trying to say? What is she trying to say in that? If you can put yourself in Eve's shoes, what do you think she's trying to communicate by eating that fruit?
She has no respect for God, so she's going to do things her way.
Okay, I want to do this my way. What'd you say?
She didn't believe.
Okay, I don't really believe. Yeah, and that was a lot of where the serpent tempted her, right? Like, did God really say that you would die? You won't really die. So now there is what God has said versus what this serpent is saying, and now the fact that I'm looking at the fruit and it looks good to eat. And so it is saying that I'm not going to believe what God told me, and I'm going to try this other thing. What does God hear? Just that. You don't believe me. When I speak to you, when I speak truth to you, you don't believe me. When I give you a promise, when I give you a rule that has a clear consequence, and this was the amazing thing about this sin. There was one rule, right? They had one rule to follow. Don't eat from that tree, that one tree. That's all you have to do. You get paradise. You get to live in paradise. And all you have to do is don't eat from that one tree. And all it takes is a little undermining, a little second guessing. Think, did God really mean that? And we do that with our disobedience, all right? And I have the luxury of having a 3-year-old son right now. So I get to see as he, and I love how Alan put it when he did the Lord's Supper talk, that kind of looking at that, how we test things, right? Because that's what, in a lot of ways, we're like little kids. And so in the same way that the little kid wants to test and see, well, what can I get away with? All right, Mom and Dad, they said if I do this, this is going to happen. And this happened at our house last night. If you guys, I'll tell you one thing. If you get tired of my family stories, let me know, and I'll cut them out. I'll cut some of them out. So Robert is really big into Mario Brothers now. Okay, so I had gotten a little Game Boy at a yard sale for like $10 several years ago that Cassie and I used, and we let him play with it, and he loves it. So it's one of those things that we'll let him use them. And lately he's wanted to play on the Wii. So I'll play with him, and we'll have fun together. It's kind of a father-son bonding thing. We yell at each other and have fun with that. But with that, he was asking, he said, can I play Mario all day? Can I play Mario? Can I play Mario? Can I play Mario? Can I play Mario? So no, you can't play Mario. So I said, well, maybe after dinner, you and I will play Mario for a little bit. But he just kept on asking to play Mario. So Cassie said, Robert, if you ask about Mario again, you're going to regret it. We don't want you to ask about Mario again. Just wait, and when it's time, we'll go play. So he asked about Mario again. So I said, okay, that's it. If you even say the word Mario one more time, we won't play for the rest of the month. 5 minutes later, we're doing whatever we're doing, and then all of a sudden, it was just like, you could tell that in his mind, there was this war going on. Like, did they really mean that? Are they really going to do it? So there was no sentence. There was no question. He's just sitting at the table and goes, Mario. So he said, all right, we're not going to play tonight, and we're not going to play for the rest of the month. And then tears ensued. But it was very sad. But that it seems so silly when a 3-year-old does it. And for some reason, it doesn't seem so silly when a 30-year-old does it, right? But that's what we do. God says, here's my rules. And yet, Christianity is not about a bunch of do's and don'ts. It's about our relationship with God. But with that, Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. That's just how it works. When you love somebody, you want to please them. And so in the relationship that we have with Jesus Christ and have with the Father and with the Holy Spirit, we want to please. And so we know, we understand, this is what pleases God. Here's the things that he wants us to do. Here's the things he wants us to avoid. Yet there's that kid in all of us that just shouts Mario out every once in a while. Is it really going to be consequential? There's a curiosity about us. And with that can be good. Curiosity can be good. Wanting to test our own faith can be a positive thing that can help us grow. But when it comes to us lacking faith and really coming down to, I don't know if I really believe what God is saying is true, and that can be dangerous. And that can open the door to sin. We talked about Ham last week. Ham, after Noah, and they land, Noah plants a vineyard, Noah makes wine, which is really an interesting thing. We don't really get in Genesis a very good glimpse of all of what's going on in civilization. I wonder if Noah made some grape juice and let it sit for too long and the whole thing was accidental. Then he drank it and said, hey, that's not so bad. Old grape juice. And then drank a lot of it. And then he was like, maybe this is the first time that anybody in history had ever gotten drunk. They didn't know what to do. What's going on with it? I know, he drank a bunch of that grape juice. And he was acting loopy, taking off his clothes. I don't know. But either way, or maybe it was a societal thing that was already going on. Ham sees his father naked in the tent, comes out, and tells his brothers about it. And, what is that? What is it? I think in that situation, you're trying to put attention on you. I've got some information. And information is powerful, isn't it? When you've got information that somebody else doesn't have, that makes you feel good. It does, doesn't it? That makes you feel good. I know something, again, go back to kids. I know something you don't know. And I want it, whether it's good news, we love to be bearers of good news, right? We love to bring forth good news to people and be excited about it. Becky's pregnant. Just kidding. But we love to be that. I mean, and that's why people call us. Like I know when last time my sister got pregnant, she called me and she says, blah, 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 and I'm pregnant, and I'm like, oh, okay. If you know me, I don't get really excited on the phone, so I feel bad about that sometimes. And then I know that people, when they know me, and if I try to act excited, they're going to know that I'm faking it. Oh, yeah. So I'm just myself. But she'll say to me, but don't tell anybody yet. Okay? Don't tell anybody yet because we want to be the one, because I haven't called so-and-so, I haven't talked to, and I want to be the one to tell them. Okay? Now, for me, that's not really hard in most of those situations to keep myself contained. For some people, it's more of a struggle. You get that good news, and it's just like, you have to tell somebody. So you call somebody up that doesn't even know whoever's pregnant. I know you don't know this person, but I had to tell somebody, so-and-so's pregnant. So we do that, and we can do it with bad news, and we can do it with gossipy things, right? Did you hear about this, that, and the other? Did you hear about this person, what they're caught up in, or what they're doing? And so, because that knowledge makes us feel powerful, and that's what we want to say. That is what, when we gossip, that is what we are saying is, I want to feel good. I want to feel powerful. I want to feel like this morning we talked about, what is it? The Anoim, is that the term? Anoim was the pathetic ones. We don't want to be those, right? We want to be the opposite of that, and we want to prove it to everybody. Because look what I have that other people don't have. I've got this information. So we could see it in Ham. In Genesis chapter 25, I think it is, Jacob and Esau. Here's another sin that we'll explore. These things that we've talked about, we're going to look at these again next week and the week after that, and look at some of the patterns within them. But we see Jacob and Esau, and so they're born. If you can pick up in verse 27 of Genesis chapter 25, it says, the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, quick, Let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. That is why he is also called Edom. Jacob replied, first, sell me your birthright. Look, I am about to die, Esau said. What good is the birthright to me? But Jacob said, swear to me first. So he swore on an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then he got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Now this was a big offense, and it's actually the New Testament talks about it in 1 John, and Esau is singled out as the one who does evil. This was a big thing. Especially these are God's people. Abraham had been called by God, and he was going to, the whole world is going to be blessed through your seed. And it was just kind of common knowledge that how things work, and we see it in many, many societies, right, is the firstborn son. They're the one that gets the privilege. They're the one that gets the greater share of the inheritance, and so on and so forth. And so that was a big deal. In the line of God, Esau had the rights. And he evaluates his situation. I don't know if he doesn't seem like he'd be really the dramatic type, but he measures things out. He says, what good would it be if I had this birthright if I'm dead? But it says that he despised it. He didn't really care about it that much. And so we make, I equate this to kind of the lust of the flesh, is what was there. He might not have really needed that stew that bad. Or kind of considering, were he and his brother at odds that much that Jacob in the end would have said, I refused, I'm going to let you die in front of me, and I'm just going to keep this stew to myself. So in the end, Jacob despised that birthright. And that's God's perspective. I believe that's God's perspective. What did God hear when Esau did that? God heard, you don't respect what I've given you. The gift that I have given you of being the firstborn son in this family, you don't care about that. You don't care about the blessings that I've heaped on you. They're not good enough for you. And not only that, but you're willing to trade in my blessings for a measly bowl of stew. And we can easily relate that to our lives, right? What do we trade? Some of the stupid sins that you've committed, right? What is it? What is the blessing that God gave you that in essence you traded that blessing, you traded that promise for something that was hollow, something that was empty, okay? That's not just him and us. The Old Testament talks about it. One of the prophets talks about, you're drinking from broken cisterns. They had these things that it would collect the rainwater. But if it's broken, it's not going to collect enough, and what it collects is going to be all muddy and dirty. And so it's like you can have good, clean, pure water from God that God wants to give you, but you're saying, no thanks, God, we'll take care of it ourselves. We're going to drink this nasty, dirty, murky water. That sounds better to us. Now, it doesn't look that way because Satan is a liar and the father of lies, and so he deceives. So that ugly, murky water, for some reason, looks good to us. But these are the things that we're doing. And these are the things that we're saying. And that's what I want us to think about, is what am I saying when I'm sinning? What am I saying when I'm sinning? And when I sin, and whatever I think I'm saying, what are the people around me hearing? Or what are they observing? What could they interpret from my actions? And then ultimately, what does God hear? And what does God see when I'm making those decisions? It's important to name things. I'll make one last kid analogy of the day. Is in our small group we had started watching some videos. There's Dr. Lehman has got this program. It's called Have a New Kid by Friday. And within that, he talks about the power of naming a child's motives. And so he says that a child will act out, will disobey really, and act out for really, it comes down to basically one of two reasons. They either want attention or they're trying to get some kind of revenge. Okay, something happened that made them mad and now they're responding to that. But even with that, he said like 75, 80% of the time, it's the attention. They just want attention. So he says, go ahead and try this. The next time your child or a child, you can try this if you don't have children, with your grandchildren or another child you know, they're in a public setting, they're at the church building, they're acting out, they're being crazy, they're being wild, they're acting out. You say to them, do you want attention right now? And you name their action. You name their motivation. And it's amazing what happens to kids. We did it with Robert. And that first time, we laughed out loud because it was just so funny to us. I can't remember what he was doing, making some loud noises, and Blythe was trying to sleep, so we were like, and then we said, wait a minute, Robert, do you just want attention? And he just stopped. He said, yeah. I was surprised he even knew what the word attention meant. But he just, yeah. So then we told him, all right, if you want attention, you don't have to do that. Just come up to me, say, Mommy, Daddy, I need some attention. He does that sometimes, surprisingly. He's like, excuse me, can I have some attention? It's pretty cute, but to name our motives, it took him off guard. It's almost like maybe he didn't even realize why he was doing what he was doing. And that's what happens with sin. As we get caught up in things, we start doing things. And so I think that this could be a very, very powerful exercise for us. Especially if there is a sin that you feel trapped by, or just that nags you, something that has been harder for you to kick, name it. Not just what the sin is, but say, what am I saying? What am I trying to accomplish by this? What is my motivation for doing this? Okay? And then see, whatever it is, if it's a lust of the flesh, there's something that I feel my body needs, and I'm sinfully fulfilling that need, whatever route I might be going. Okay, is there another way? What is the right and good way that God has provided, that God intended for me to supply that need? So I can still, because God gives us every good thing, right? God doesn't want us to be in want. He provides a way. That was our verse last week. No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. He will provide an escape for you. God will provide a way out. So we're caught in sin. Oh, okay, this is the path I'm going. This is the way I'm going. But I'm pursuing these things in all the wrong way. What's God's plan for me to get this thing that I want? If it's or maybe it's the thing that's the problem. And can I do it God's way? And if I can, I got to know that is going to reap much more fruit and better rewards. Okay, so we just need to kind of stop there and think. What is God hearing when I'm doing this sin? And then, we could apply that to a lot of things: stealing, cheating, the words we use. So seeing the bigger promise. Abraham, we read in chapter 20. We'll kind of wrap it up here if you want to turn to Genesis 22. So Abraham, he lies about his wife to try to save his own hide. And essentially what he's saying is, I don't trust you, God. I don't trust that you're going to save my life. I'm scared that if I tell the truth and do what's right, that you're not going to come through for me. That's essentially what Abraham is saying, and that's what God hears. God says to Abraham, I'm going to bless you with a child. Even in your old age, as old as you are, as old as your wife is, I am going to bless you with a child. Now that was a big thing. That was a huge blessing. And God had already made this commitment to Abram that he was going to be a great nation. So there is some wondering there. But Abraham and Sarah, they get to a point where what? What happens? They say, you know what, God? You made this promise to us, but it hasn't happened yet. So maybe what we need to do is take things into our own hands. So Sarah says, Abraham, you need to have this child, so take the servant. Take this servant girl and go have a child with her. Maybe that's what we need to do. It's not, maybe God didn't mean that it was going to be me and you. You just need to have this child because we're getting too old. Take the servant girl and have the child through her. That was not God's plan. They strayed from God's plan because they were not patient. They would not wait on God. And they did it their own way, and it did not work out well. So I think they learned from that lesson. So here in chapter 22, they finally do have that child of promise, Isaac. And then he says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. And early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. And when he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. And the 2 of them went together. And Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Father? Yes, my son. The fire and the wood are here, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide, my son. Provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. You know how the story goes on. They reach the place, they set up the altar. Abraham throws his son up there and lifts the knife, but before he comes down on it, God stops him. Now, I don't believe that Abraham was lying to Isaac in this case. I don't believe that his intent was to be deceptive to Isaac. I just don't think at the bottom of the hill he wanted to say, you're the lamb, right? But why I believe those things is in how Abraham words his message. The Lord will provide. That was such a huge growth step for Abraham. In this situation with Sarah, will the Lord provide? Abraham said, I don't think so. Not that I can really count on. I got to do it my own way. The baby, Isaac, that he would be born, did he and Sarah believe that the Lord would provide? No, they didn't. At least not in their time that they wanted to be. They said, no, God's not going to provide for us. We have to do things our own way. And now finally here, he gets it. And in probably the most severe of those things, I'm sure that Abraham would have rather died than to have to kill his own son, right? I'm sure that he would rather have just gone childless than to have had to kill his own son. And so in the most severe of the circumstances, it finally clicks in his faith and in his journey. And he's able to say to his son, God will provide. God will make a way. And the writer of Hebrews tells us that Abraham fully believed that even if he killed his son Isaac, that God would bring him back from the dead. That is how Abraham's faith had grown. And that is the faith that we need to strive for. Is that in so much of our sin, we're saying, God, we don't really believe that you're going to fulfill your promise. God, we don't really trust you. We don't really have the faith that it takes to do what you want to do, to go the way that you've called us to go. So you know what? This time, I'm just going to do it my way. It's a sad thing because reflecting on last week, the seriousness of sin, sometimes it just takes one of those choices to just do it my way this one time. That I've seen people that were devout Christians, that were faithful, that would read their Bible all the time, pray all the time, be meeting with the church every time the church met, and then they just made one decision where they said, you know what, God, in this thing, I'm going to do this my way because your way doesn't really make sense or doesn't really fit my agenda. And everything came crumbling down after that. Because then they tried to fix it. And when they tried to fix it, instead of coming clean, instead of going to a Christian brother or sister and saying, I messed up in this way, I failed, I've sinned, and this has brought me away from God, it's brought me away from the church, and I need reconciliation. They look at that and say, no, I don't want that shame. I don't want my brothers and sisters to know what I've done. So I'm just going to try to fix this and do it my own way. And they just compound the problem, and they get further and further and further and further away from God. The concept is not unique to Genesis 22. It is throughout the Bible. The Lord will provide. God has asked us to live our lives for Him. He's asked us to love Him and obey His commandments. And if we do that, we're promised that we'll have everything that we need. Right? Jesus says that on the Sermon on the Mount. And when He says, you don't have to worry about anything, about the clothes that you're going to wear, about the food that you're going to eat. You don't have to worry about tomorrow. Just seek first God's kingdom and righteousness. The first thing on our mind should be doing what's right. And God will supply everything else. The Lord will provide.